I got my start by sharing my work online for everyone to see. And with that, I think you're opening yourself up to a lot of criticism, because at this point, it's not just your friends or your family complimenting you, but instead someone across the world seeing the final product, like you guys in the chat or from across, like we're just all over the world. So it's really cool how you can be able to put something out to that many people, but it's definitely a little bit scary as well. And I think within this, by sharing my work online, I would, start to get comments like, your work or your portfolio feels like repetitive, or your images look the same. And for me, this was something where I kind of took a step back and tried to look at my own work kind of objectively from the person who's actually creating it. And from here, I started to compare my latest work that I was creating to my oldest work when I started out from years and years ago. And personally, I saw a huge difference. And that's something that you guys also may want to do sometime today or later this week, is to do kind of exactly that. Even if you just started photography last year, or again, if it's a different medium and you started recently, take the first image or the piece that you've ever created and compare it to your latest one. And I promise there will be some sort of improvement, whether it be, the lighting, the composition, or the focus. I think within every shoot that I go on, I'm learning something new. And I think what it really takes to learn something new is really getting out there and creating. And I promise you something will be better, even if it's just one little thing, a mistake you made on your shoot that you're on, say yesterday, now for going forward, to kind of correct that, and that will show within the final product. And sometimes that's all I kind of need to realize, is to kind of keep creating, is that initial comparison. And maybe this will make you even realize that you are being a little bit too consistent. I've definitely felt that way sometimes too, and maybe you want to change it up. But I will say, I almost feel like there isn't anything totally wrong with consistency either. I found a lot of good inconsistency in the work that consistency brings. And for me, it's definitely been a blessing in a way too, because it's cool that for me now, like people can recognize some of my work, even if my name isn't attached to it. And there's definitely been instances where, say my work is published somewhere and not credited, and some of my followers or my audience will call that out, and that's been a really cool part of this whole process. But again, it's really all up to you how you feel about your work, and yeah, that's the awesome thing about photography. But
Brandon, have you ever had an image, and let's say it was taken when you were learning and starting out, and like you were mentioning here, you're both putting your work out and yourself out there, but you're also trying to find like your path and like what works for you. Have you ever had an image that maybe took you by surprise? It was trending, you noticed it, and you were surprised by that image being trended? Like, I'm asking the wrong question. What I'm asking
no, I know what you're trying to say.
I've had that happen, right? Where you're like, oh, that's the one that's trending right now. I was shocked
Yeah,
by that. Have you ever had that happen, and how
yeah,
did you deal with that?
yeah. I think that's why I kind of want to emphasize like also just creating work for yourself, because I think whenever you're putting work out there, there could be an image you like absolutely hate or despise, but you just kind of throw it out there because you for me, like I was stuck on the schedule of like posting every night at the same time. So I was like, okay, well, I don't even like this photo, but I have to post in my mind. So I'm just going to throw it out there. And then the one you either didn't like or you want to change, like that's the one that does well. And you're just like, you're so confused and you're just like questioning everything, because then you're like, should all my other work kind of look like that? But I like this one better. So I think it's just like a battle of the two, and trying to find some sort of in between, at least for me, because a lot of my work and that I receive from clients is based around social media. So it's like, I do have to kind of think about what an audience would like. But at the end of the day, I think what I like is the most important, because I'm the one creating it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, I think again, creating work for just you um, is super important because, like I said, I'm creating with all of these other people in mind, whether that be like a brand or my audience online. And for me, like I'm sure like all of you, I got started within photography because I genuinely like love to do it. Um, so reminding myself like the how and why is very important. And then also kind of like creating in that way of keeping yourself in mind. I've caught myself editing an image a bit differently or like stepping out of my comfort zone, mainly just because like I'm the one who has everything to do with the outcome and no one else. So yeah, create at the end of the day, like even if you want to take like a day or a photo you're working on and like not even put it out anywhere, just create it for yourself. I think that's really cool too, because you'll start to kind of do these little changes or something that you wouldn't normally add to your portfolio, but you can kind of you can test things out and see test the waters when you normally wouldn't.
You do.
To get into a bit like of how my photo shoots actually go down, here's a nice little visual example for you guys with actual times to kind of show how much can happen in a matter of hours from the outfit, the location, but also the lighting. So these 4 photos were taken of my friend Isabella, who I met through shooting in photography, and now we work together pretty consistently. And if you've ever kind of peeked over on my YouTube channel, you'll probably recognize either her or these photos because we shoot together a lot. But it's a lot of fun to work with her because she is a dancer. I'm like, if that's not obvious already. So she's able to offer a lot of dynamic and striking poses, which I feel like tend to complement my photos really well. Um, and sometimes it's really as simple as working with someone new to kind of elevate your work. So I'm really glad that we were able to get into contact and just create the work we do. So maybe this is your kind of sign to shoot your shot and like reach out to someone that you've been wanting to work with that you feel like could complement your own work. But yeah, as you can see, these are the times where we started out. So we started around golden hour and then ended when the sun went down. And this is how I like to conduct a lot of my shoots because of the amount of variation we can achieve in the lighting. Um, so preparation for me kind of includes a few core things, and that's of course the lighting, the time of day we'll be shooting in, the location, the outfits involved, and then finally the edit. And I find myself when I'm like really on top of these kind of key things and have a lot of involvement before my shoots, that's when I see my best images come to life. Again, this is just kind of how I prefer to work. I know other photographers that will spend, hours like literally just setting up one singular scene. So it just varies based around whatever you enjoy. And I've also had those instances where I do take like minutes, hours, like just to get one photo. But this is probably my favorite way to work because I love getting like so many images out of one day. Um, because as much as it seems like I may be out there shooting every single day, that's just honestly not realistic for me personally. And I'm sure a lot of you too have other jobs or like it's photography or creating is just a hobby. Um, but for me, there's like so many things that can come into play being a full-time photographer. There's like emails, like client calls and planning and preparation. Like there's, I don't know if you guys have ever seen that like little graph, but there's like this little graph, it's like a pie chart and it like shows the percentages of like what a
Uh,
photographer like deals with. And it's like 5% this, 5%. So, and like the actual shooting portion is like literally like this tiny. And I'm like, that's me. Like, I get it. um, but yeah, and with all of this too, I think it's also important to kind of take a step back and breathe and take breaks. And this is something too that I honestly have a really hard time doing, mainly because I'm freelancing and at the end of the day, I'm like my own boss here. So it like feels like I'm never really like off the clock. There's like shoots you could be planning or new subjects you could be getting in contact with, but none of this is like all really possible if you're not feeling your best. So I know I'm like throwing a lot of like information at you guys, but I just wanted to remind you that all too that you guys can like turn off and like enjoy time away because it's like very necessary. And maybe you guys can also drop like a little new hobby or something that you've been getting into in the chat that's like not related, because like we all need like, you know, we all need like balance.
You're still, I try to remember this, you're still an artist and a creator even when you're not creating, and sometimes it's tough and you might be creating in a different way that surprises you. But I love the way you showed the different times and different shots, and they all give like different energy. She looks beautiful, it's amazing. But I
Yeah.
love how you interjected, you know, that's true. Like sometimes you need to take breaks and, you
Yeah.
know, really, and that recharge is what I feel like gives you the necessary, like whatever you want to call it for lack of a better word, like blank canvas to try and create
Yeah.
again after.
Seriously, I feel like when I started out, like I literally didn't realize that I could like take a break. I was like, what do you mean I can like have fun? Like I literally was like just like die hard like shooting, editing. And now I feel like I've come to some sort of balance. But it definitely takes a minute because it's like when you find a hobby that you're so passionate about, it's like that's just what you want to do all day, every day. But then you kind of find yourself in this spot of like, okay, I need to have other interests. I need to like do other things. But yeah, I just wanted to share that with you guys because I know a lot of people also kind of like when they see my name or think of me, it's like just photography. But I'm like, yeah, but like, you know, we're also human. Like we like do things. We have friends. We go to dinner. Like, you know what I mean? But I wanted to move on here into more of a visual look into the behind the scenes. And you can see a lot of kind of like the core things that I was kind of talking about and like that are kind of thought out from kind of like the prop styling to hair and makeup to the posing. But what's funny to me is that like at the end of the day, and you can say all these like cool things, it's like at the end of the day, we're like literally on the side of a road, which I think is funny because it's like this end result, like really pretty photo, but it's like we're literally on like the side of the highway here. Um, and thankfully, the model Sydney here was cool enough to kind of sit down there in the mulch. And I got really lucky because I really wanted to grab this shot. So I definitely wanted to make mention to like when you're working as a team and maybe your subject isn't cool with sitting somewhere or like wearing something specific, to always like respect the other person. For me as a portrait photographer, like my images can't come to light if I'm not um, in agreement with who I'm shooting. So I just always wanted to like remind you guys to always be respectful of whoever you're shooting and also the places you're shooting. Because I don't know about you guys, but I've seen like a lot of images like it was like last year or something, but videos of people like just like trampling over like flower fields and like let's not do that. You know what I mean? Like let's be respectful of like our surroundings. There has been moments where like I'll kind of like sneak around like a bookstore and like quickly get a shot, but like I'm always trying to be like sly and like chill with it. So just
Can
wanted
I
to
ask you another question?
yeah.
Sorry. Is that also the key to, because she looks so relaxed. She looks like, she honestly looks like she's like blooming out of the bush. Is
Yeah.
that also kind of the key to creating, which I feel like is kind of unique to your photography?
Uh,
Um there's images that you're going to show us today where the environment looks super relaxed and natural, but there's still a lot of vibrancy and like life and like attitude to it. So
hmm.
would you say that that's kind of like also the key, if you're like respecting the environment also and paying attention to everything
Yeah.
in creating that piece, is that how you get that like beautiful effect? I'm sorry guys, but
Yeah.
this is like such a gorgeous effect.
No, totally. I think there's again, there's so many things that come into play, but I think like showing also, again, if you're shooting, I'm just also mentioning portrait photography because that's what I do, but when you're like shooting with someone new and like it could definitely be like uncomfortable. Like I feel like people I know have like mentioned it as like you feel like it's like a first date, you're like meeting someone new, you've never met them, like, but you're gonna have to spend the next few hours together like shooting. So I feel like it's all about like just being like chill and respectful and friendly, and I think that's when I've seen really cool images come to light, because if the vibes are right, and like, you know, even like if you bring a little like speaker with you to like play music, or like you're just kind of exploring an area, like I feel like I like to go on these shoots where we're just chatting and we're like talking through like our day. It's not like sit here, like I'm gonna grab a picture and then run away. Like it's like you want to get to know the person you're shooting. And I think that will really emulate like through the photo as well. Because if someone, I mean, with professional models, it's a little bit easier because they're so used to being in front of the camera. But I know a lot of us are, maybe you're taking like senior portraits, or you're taking pictures of someone you don't know well that's never been in front of the camera. That uncomfortability tends to like shine through in not the best way. So I think if you, as the photographer, are directing your subject in a way that feels comfortable, like I always mention, like you might feel like stupid like posing, but you don't look stupid like on my camera. So like just go for it. And I think when you kind of emphasize that, that's when the best images come to play, because they're not afraid to move their hands. Or um, for me, like I'll also demonstrate the pose. Like I'll, even when I'm shooting with like a dancer, I'll literally try to like, yeah, like it's not pretty, but like it helps. I think it helps everyone just feel more comfortable, because
Yeah.
taking photos can be, you know, just kind of an uncomfy situation. So as a photographer, you want to make it so everyone feels welcome, you know. But yeah, off to the right side here is a before and after. And I sort of mentioned this a bit earlier, but editing again has become such a fundamental part of my images. And I think that's also why I'm so hyped to be here with VSCO today, because I feel like that's what really kind of brings my images to life, is the editing. Um, and I'm sure, I know a lot of you two guys are here because you love editing, so we could just kind of geek out together. But here is that like up close final image. Um, and just to kind of show you some more details, I'm not sure how it's like appearing on your end because we're on like a presentation, but like you know, you can view the final photo on my portfolio or my Instagram. But I think for this image, I ended up using the E8 filter or the A9. Those are kind of two of my go-tos. And they've kind of been like my little secret weapon for like images with tones, and like to add more tonal range to my images. And I think that's too what kind of creates this recognizable look in your portfolio, is if you may consistently find yourself using a particular filter like I do. And I also think a big part of this image to come to light was playing with the complementary colors of like the red and the green. Maybe I'll pause it as we move forward. That might help you guys. But I think the favorites tool here is like absolutely essential for me, because there's definitely, you know, VSCO offers a ton of different tools, and I found myself gravitating towards a handful that I use within basically every image. It just, you know, it just depends on which image I'm going to use which filter for. So for this one, I have a lot of the C's favorited. I love E8, A9, A8, A7. A lot of the filters that tend to add this really like tonal look with like these crushed blacks. Those are definitely my favorite tools to use here. So I kind of just go through my favorites, and I go through like every one, because I know they're just like, they're so handy. One of them will look good here. And so for this one, I went with A9, or, oh, okay. I'm like trying to follow along with what I'm doing. I went with A9 here, and something I'll do, as you'll see throughout this recording, is I use the slider like a crazy person. Like I just go back and forth. And I always feel like I end up around like the 2 or like the 3 or the 4 point mark, but I always like to just slide it back and forth a million times and really, oh, we're starting over, sorry. But really see what looks best. So yeah, I kind of bring it down. You can see like I literally just go crazy with that. But I think that's just what helps me. And I think yeah, it's doing a little dance here. I wanted to also just remind you guys that um like if you feel stupid for like adding like a one little like notch here, that's all I do. Like you can see I might not even go for it. Okay, he put a one point, a point one, but you know what I'm saying? Like I feel like it doesn't really matter. If you feel stupid, just like go for it. Just try like literally every effect and see what you guys can create. um I tend to just really go through every single one basically and see what we're working with. um and of course, because this image has a lot of red tones, I'm jumping over to the hue sliders here. And this has been such a powerful tool for me because I love to work with colors. So just playing with the reds. Um,
And that's the HSL tool, right?
yes, yes,
Oh,
yes, yes.
we
So
love the HSL tool.
yeah, how can you not? So yeah, this is super powerful again because like, I mean, this image you can tell has a lot of blues, it has a lot of reds. So I'm going in to those two specifically, and within that slider, like you'll really be able to see a change by just one slide down. But yeah, just kind of going through and like being pretty picky with everything I'm doing. Here I'm going through like the shadows tint and the highlights tint. Um, I tend to really like this kind of warm like highlight look. I feel like a lot of my images tend to maybe go on the cooler route. So I like to kind of combat that by using like a highlights tint for like a warm like yellow or like a cream color. It helps really bring everything together. Um, just going in with sharpen. I also love that you can kind of zoom in here and really see exactly what you're working with. Because I think within tools like clarity and sharpen, um, you could get a little too crazy with it. Because like I know within my process, like posting to different social medias feel like it kind of degrades like the quality of your overall image. So having the tool like a sharpen on here just to boost that up just a little bit to kind of again combat that like social media potato quality that we don't love to see.
That's like a
Um,
zoom in. You said before when you're sharpening, so you don't like
yeah,
do it. Oh, that's a good tip.
yeah. Because I almost sometimes forget that we can do that and see exactly what we're working with. Because even just whenever I'm editing on any type of program, like zooming in and out has been super. It sounds like stupid, like of course you're gonna zoom in and out, but like it's kind of like the same energy as like if you were to create like a painting or a drawing or even a photo and then take a step away from it for a day or a week and then come back and with like fresh eyes and you feel you're like things look different. And I think zooming in and out like in that moment has that same kind of energy as like, wait, this photo feels different. I want to change this and this. So you again, you can see me um, doing that throughout this kind of little screen recording here. And I'm testing out the dodge and burn here. I think I end up undoing it, but I that's again what I also love about having all these tools to play with. If something doesn't seem right, you just simply, you know, move on. But for me, burning here, I think I went forward with because I was starting to really like how kind of like cinematic this shot looks with like the vignette happening. So I wanted to add to that. And also think sometimes with vignetting, I know there's the option to do that as well on here, but sometimes when you're shooting in like, for this instance, we were shooting in a park in Brooklyn, and the lighting was really nice and overcast, but we were able to still see some sky. But sometimes in your before photo and like when there's a vignette, sometimes the vignette is a little bit to one side, like it's a little bit heavier on this side and a little bit lighter. And sometimes when you're adding its own vignette, it just adds to that like unevenness. And so I think being able to burn one of the sides. Again, for you guys who aren't familiar, dodging is like highlighting certain parts of an image, and then burning is darkening it. So just going in here and darkening any points that feel a little bit uneven. We're just playing with the brush size to kind of make everything flow. And again, something I'm doing here too is tapping back and forth between the before, which was the photo we imported, and then the after the effects we applied, just to see, did we do too much? Sometimes I can get like carried away with filters or changes, and I think I'll just be tapping away to see exactly what we changed. And then I always save it as a draft. I'm not sure what I did here. Okay, I went with both. But I like to save it as a draft because within my photo shoots, I tend to create a lot of images from the same location. So for this shot, like I have a bunch of other images that were, at the same park, but different angles. So for this shot, I was like literally inside a bush, which was funny, but I ended up going over to like her right side to get more of like the bridge. And with that, we can save this to our own kind of like studio there, and then copy and paste our edits to other images, which is very important because we don't want to have to go through all of those little tweaks if our images are shot within the same like settings and the same location, and everything feels really consistent, because of course then that edit applied to this one will feel really seamless. And then this is just a quick final photo going on of how that looked. I kind of love to kind of change greens to reds, or like reds to pink. I love working with color. Another one of my favorite parts about VSCO is like there's some like infrared VSCO filters that are always fun to work with. So yeah, this is that final image. So these two images show my two photo books. Luminescence is on the left side, which came out in 2017, and then Ultraviolet is on the right side, which was my most recent release that dropped in summer of 2020. And so both of these photo books are over 200 pages and display like hundreds of my images. And then Ultraviolet on the right side has also some before and afters and behind the scenes, and also some writing done by me as well. I think Maya might leave some links to you guys to these, but I didn't want to like do like a promo. This is like no pressure at all, but I wanted to kind of talk through these because if you're interested in creating your own photo book, maybe like the landing page of the site or the process behind it all could be cool to you. Because as I've kind of said, I've started within photography through social media. So I've only really ever seen my photos digitally on a screen, whether that be a phone screen or a computer screen. And I feel like when I started that, I kind of immediately wanted to make it a goal to someday in the future be able to print my work. So I'm super proud of these, but they've been a really great way to kind of further connect with my audience and stuff, because then I could have my photos like laid out in their own home, which is really cool. I have mine on my own coffee table, but also to just remind you guys and myself that like the photos we're taking can be real tangible things that we can hold. And to emphasize you to maybe even print your own work. I know you could literally go anywhere to print some photos and hang them up and they look so pretty. But yeah, I'm super glad that I can kind of have my photos in a physical realm, and it feels really nice.
There's a lot of great tips in this challenge. So Brandon, I would love for you to kind of walk through the ones you kind of bundled in here.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, we came up with a few tips pre the challenge just to kind of get you guys going. So the first one is shooting long exposures. So shooting long exposures can help add further dimension and light that you wouldn't be able to capture otherwise. So moving cars or street life in the night sky, those are all kind of perfect subjects for something like this. This particular image was shot at a concert, and I was like off to the side of the stage and ended up turning my exposure to, I think it was like a second and a half or like 2 seconds. There's probably something shorter than that because he was like moving a lot. So I was just kind of quickly shooting them, and this was an image I came out with. I think within concert photography, there's like so many moving parts that when I've ever shot shows, they just feel very chaotic, and I'm just trying to get any usable images I can. So I'm really happy that I walked away from the show with this image right here. There's a lot of, yeah.
Oh, sorry. May I ask a question? I think for long exposures, is there a sweet spot that you find with exposure, especially with things like this, to try and get some elements of the image showing through as well as the light streaks?
Yeah, it feels very like experimental, and I think that's what's really cool about long exposures, is that it literally just feels like you try to take an image and then you got to change it this, change that. So it feels very like again, just like chaotic with the way that you have to change everything. But I think that's what makes it so fun. It's like you're testing out all these different things and coming out with this really unique shot that you didn't really even plan for. It's not like I was like, okay, I'm going to take this. There's going to be like a light streak over here and over here. Like I just kind of set up my camera and like went for it. And I think that's, again, what's really cool about taking long exposures.
That's great. It's also a teaser for a future tip, but I'll let you keep going.
Yeah. And so this one here, we have incorporating external lighting. So adding any additional light sources or flashes to your composition can not only highlight particular details in the frame, but also reduce any grain that you don't want. And this has been super key for me when I'm out shooting and I can't really, or I'm not really into any other lights that are around, whether it be like a storefront that I see. Sometimes I'll gravitate towards like street lamps or things like that. But adding in your own lights, you can really, unlike the long exposure that I was kind of talking about with how I went about shooting mine, you can be more in control of the situation. And it doesn't matter what time of day or what lighting you're shooting in, if you're kind of bringing in your own lights to the shoot and controlling it. It definitely feels like when I do this, I tend to take a while, way more than like other little like tips. Like if I'm inputting my external lights, like I take a while to set them up. So I definitely want to make note of that. But it's definitely something super cool that you guys can add to your photos. There's also complementary colors. So shooting into the nighttime can sometimes be a little bit monochromatic. So from like a blue sky reflecting onto the street, that's just like a whole blue scene, adding in additional pops, whether that be with the external lights or the outfit, can really help add some more dimension. For this example, like we added some green off to the side of her face. And I think if that weren't there, maybe it would kind of get washed away. And it feels more like 3D and like she's really popping out from her surroundings. And then we have camera settings, and this is just kind of to talk through the mechanics behind your camera, and adjusting the exposure, the white balance, and the ISO from photo to photo. Just being really experimental, like I was kind of talking about with the long exposures. Don't be afraid to boost up, certain things, and play around with your camera, because that's really the fun of it.
Is there anything else you want to say before we hop off?
Yeah, I just wanted to give a big thank you to you guys for attending. And honestly, these questions were amazing. And I'm like looking through them now, and I'm just like, I could literally keep going because they're so good. But I'm hoping that maybe diving in a little bit more about my process today helped you guys out in any sort of way. Because I feel like we talked a lot about a lot of different things, because we went from like the creative to like the business side and really got into it. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm reading through the chat right now. But thank you guys so much for being here.